Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict, where we had plenty of action to reflect on over the weekend, even if it was a bit wet. I think I've just dried out from Saturday's action at Newbury. But on to the Curragh, where Sunday actually got abandoned. But we had some fantastic racing on Saturday afternoon, including the Irish Oaks, which was won by Savethelastdance, and Art Power was another winner for Tim Easterby over in Ireland. Art Power himself was in the Group 2 Barberson Castle Sapphire Stakes, and he was bidden to make it 5 from 5 going over the Irish Sea, and he had a great opportunity according to the market, and it looked like he was going to be 6 to 5 favourite was Art Power. Ladies Church, last year's winner at 3 to 1. 6 to 1, Go Athletico, 7 to 1, and bigger the remainder. Art Power was in stall 5. Our runner-up, Go Athletico, stall 8, and the third, Moss Tucker, in stall 7. So the high numbers were probably favoured for this contest, but the grey in stall 5, he got a great break, dropping back to 5 furlongs. Only the third time he tried the minimum trip without success on his 2 previous attempts, but he absolutely bolts up on this occasion. You can see in great colours, white lavender, travelling pretty strongly for Colbert. The other UK Raider, she falls away quite tamely. Our second and third are tracking the front 2 on the stands rail, so it might have been a little bit of an advantage to be racing on that part of the track. And Moss Tucker, you can see travelling really strongly in the Team Valor colours. Go Athletico, perhaps not going quite as well, but who was going well? David Allen on the grey in the King Power colours. You wouldn't think he was trying the minimum trip for just the third time. He seems to have really relished dropping back in distance, and as soon as Dave Allen presses go, he quickens away quite nicely, and for a sprint he wins by a remarkable 4 1/4 lengths. You can see Moss Tucker looking like he's going to be finishing in a runners-up slot before being claimed by Go Athletico. He only having his third start over in Ireland, having won at Cork on his Irish debut. We take a look at the head-on, and Art Power is just such a convincing winner, and you've got to be delighted with how he's performed. 0 from 16 when he runs in UK stakes races, 5 from 5 over in Ireland. There's something about crossing the water that just sees him transform. It probably does show you that the Irish do lack a little bit of strength in that department, certainly compared to other divisions. However, where Art Power goes next will be interesting. He's got plenty of entries coming up. He's got the Phoenix Stakes, which he won in the past, but he will have a £5 penalty. Sprint Cup at Haydock, Nunthorpe at York, and the Flying 5. I think they'll be aiming him for the Flying 5 at the Curragh. He shows he can go at 5 furlongs here, and can he make it 6 from 6, stepping up into Group 1 company? Let's hear what Dave Allen had to say about riding the grey.
It was only bringing him back to 5 we thought might be an issue, but I've always been confident 5 is going to be okay for him, especially, you know, if the ground's soft. And it went right up his street today, and it all worked out perfect. So confident enough, but I thought a little bit of a not sure about coming back to 5 furlongs. The way he was powering up that hill, they can't go that fast to catch me, you know. Especially in that ground, he was powering away, and I heard the commentator shout I'd gone clear, so we just coasted on.
Next up was the Juddmonte Irish Oaks, where Savethelastdance was 11 to 10 on favourite. 4 to 1, Race Beckett's Blue Stocking. Signed 2, Warm Heart 7s, as is that 12s, and bigger the rest, a bit of money for Luminaire Rock. Just the 8 ran in the Irish Oaks, and Savethelastdance has been to go 1 better than what she did in the UK version. And it was pretty smooth sailing for Ryan Moore, apart from 4 out to 2 out. As they left the gates, pretty sedate early pace. You knew one of the Bayador battalion would go on, and it was Library in the dark blue cap. They all sorted themselves out quite nicely. Our winner, Savethelastdance, sat in 3rd place. The runner-up, Blue Stocking, had 2 behind her in 6th, and 3rd was the front-running Library. Luminaire Rock, the pacemaker, was also in 4th. So generally, he didn't want to be too far behind Ryan Moore, riding a filly who got outpaced initially in the Cheshire Oaks before winning by 22 lengths. She got found out a little bit by the undulations on quicker ground at Epsom, but as you watch it here, everything is proving pretty straightforward for Ryan Moore. Blue Stocking, we've been a little bit unlucky behind Warm Heart. Now Warm Heart in the pink colours at the back of the field. She did not appear to travel on the rain-softened ground at all. A much quicker surface when she won at Newbury and the Ribblesdale at Royal Ascot. Normally Ryan Moore, when he's ridden her, sat quite handy. On this occasion, perhaps because of the ground, she just couldn't seem to lay up, never travelled a yard in the pink colours. She was our 3rd favourite, but all pretty smooth sailing. Back to the UK Oaks, the form really hasn't worked out particularly well. Soul Sister, our winner, wasn't disgraced, but only 3rd in the Grand Prix de Paris last time out, while the third, fourth and fifth have let the form down to various degrees. Carnarvon at least finished sixth in the Hampton Court, but both the fourth and the fifth have been well beaten in lower grade. So question marks over the form. How was Savethelastdance going to bounce back from that Oaks defeat on the rain-softened ground, where she's got a record of now 4 from 5 on an easy surface? Was expected to suit, and a bit of a greg against her rivals potentially. Library, who stays a mile 6, was favourite for Group 3 last time, just stretches the field out from this point, and then you can see in third place, Ryan Moore, goggles down, just starting to ask Savethelastdance to pick up and find a little bit, whereas in green, the eye catcher at this point was Chris Hayes on Dermot Wells' Azazat. She's travelling really nicely as they go around the home bend. Also going well was Colin Keane in the Juddmonte colours on blue stocking. Here, you're starting to panic with Savethelastdance. You can see Ryan's desperate not to get put into a pocket by Chris Hayes on Azazat, but she's just not going well enough. Post-race, Aidan O'Brien said maybe she was getting intimidated by the Aga Khan runner, but for me, she was just a little bit one pace, a little bit slow. She trades at 999 to 1 in running, and you can see why. Looks like Colin Keane has timed it absolutely perfectly. He's claimed the pacemaking Library, and it's a Group 1 in the bag. However, this Dore Galileo Savethelastdance picks up really strongly in the closing stages, claims blue stocking, goes past Library, and it's another Group 1 for Ballydoyle. Maybe a relieved Ryan Moore on pulling up, as it did look unlikely between the 2 and the 1, but this filly just finds plenty when the going is tough. We can see the head on now, and just see Ryan wanting to make sure he doesn't get stuck in behind Luminaire Rock. The filly just isn't going anywhere. She's carrying her head to the left. Maybe Ryan just trying to make sure that gap doesn't close, so he has got a clear run to the line. Ryan Moore's a jockey that doesn't make mistakes. It starts to get a little bit tighter here where blue stocking comes across, but on the whole, this was an excellent effort. However, form-wise, I'm not sure how strong either the UK or the Irish Oaks is. Blue stocking has run an absolute cracker, reversing the form with warm heart. Race Beckett said no excuses, good ride, everything went right. At the end of the day, beaten by a better horse. Where is she going to go next? Our winner, St Ledger, has been mooted. We've had 8 fillies running that contest in the last 10 years. 1 winner, that was Simple Verse for Race Beckett. 3 seconds past the post. Haskoy, who was disqualified, placed 4th last year. Latidar and Tasley Talent were all second in the St Ledger. For me, I don't know whether she's going to be good enough taking on a colt, especially a colt like Gregory, who has certainly caught the eye, unbeaten so far for the Gosdens. However, 4 in the last 10 years, good soft ground has prevailed at Doncaster, so she may well get her ground, and stepping up and trip should suit. Although looking back to her pedigree, Daddy's Little Darling, who's most famous for bolting to the start in the Oaks, she's actually a half-sister to Mongolian Sunday, who won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, so there's plenty of speed on the dam side. So even though her running style suggests she should improve stepping up the extra 2.5 furlongs for St Ledger, it isn't guaranteed that she will actually improve for the further distance. But let's hear what Aidan O'Brien had to say after the race.
Her last run was on hard ground, well, fast ground in Epsom, on a track that she didn't really work on, and ground that she probably found it a big change today. Obviously we did. She was very laboured, and just when Chris came around Ryan, she just got a little bit intimidated, but Ryan was incredible on her. He got her back out and got her motivated again, and she really ran to the line from. But incredible ride he gave her. But she's typical what Galileo is. When other horses are down on their knees after hitting the wall, that's when they kick in, and that's exactly what she did do.
It's time to turn our attention to Newbury, where we had an 8-race card on Saturday. The rain fell from about 11:30 throughout racing, so the ground got softer as the day wore on. Sketch was our opening winner of the juvenile contest. Relief Rally, though, was the highlight of the day, winning the £250,000 Super Sprint. However, we're going to look at Al Arzi first, who won the 150 for William Haggis and Jim Crowley. This was the Bet365 Stakes, and Hine Avenue was actually our favourite, 7-4. Al Arzi, who opened up at 5-4 on when entries were made on the Monday, he went off at 130. 6-1 Epic Poet and Oviedo. No confirmed front runners for this contest, and it took a little while for the race to develop. In the end, it was Phantom Flight who emerged as our leader in the gold colours, but it wasn't a particular plan as such from Peter McDonald. Nobody else wanted to go on, and it certainly favoured those horses that were ridden prominently. But you know, of Al Arzi, Jim Crowley never rides his horse too positively. He sat in 5th place. Our runner-up is the one that got an easy lead, Phantom Flight, and back in 3rd, Oviedo. Keep an eye on the grey. The favourite, High Avenue, tried to track Al-Azi, but he didn't particularly pick up as well as our winner. Epic Poet in the green and light green. He was making his debut for the Freddie and Martin Mead stable. Now, he'd worn headgear when winning over in France. He had no blinkers or cheek pieces on for the yard debut, and in the end he made a bit of a disappointing start to his career. A key aspect of this contest was these horses were finding winning rather difficult. We had Dancing Magic, who was 0 from 8 coming into the contest. He was a little bit on his toes in the paddock and might just need a confidence boosting win in a maiden. Phantom Flight, our leader, had a good season in Stakes Company, placed on all 3 starts. Oviedo, the Zetland winner, he was 9th in the Hampton Court, showed a little bit of wayward tendencies when he was behind Dancing Magic in 8th. And at the back of the field, the Grey High Avenue, he won 3 races as a 3-year-old back in 2021. And why, again, he'd run with credit this campaign, no wins to his name for over 2 years. Here you were happy seeing Jim Crowley travelling strongly on Al-Azi, but you were a little bit worried he would have to quicken off a steady pace as PJ McDonald stretches the field from this point on. You've got Oviedo and Dancing Magic, but your eyes are always drawn to the Shadwell colours worn by Jim Crowley. It's just whether this horse would pick up. A very disappointing last of 5 on his first run of the campaign. Only 1 run last year when winning at Ascot, and Jim's at pains to keep him on the bridle and actually find a little bit of trouble in the run. Keep this horse interested. He's starting to row away, but I think Jim always knew he was going to pick up the 2 in front. The Grey, he was tracking Al-Azi throughout High Avenue. He does not pick up as quickly, and he only ends up finishing 4th here. Jim Crowley asks him to go, and Al-Azi finds plenty. Now, if we go back 2 years to the 2021 Coronation Cup, where people thought he got out-battled by Pile Driver, maybe he just got outstayed. This was his first time back at a mile and a quarter for a while, his first win at a mile and a quarter, and it might be exactly what Al-Azi wants. Again, the head-on provides a great illustration of just how strongly Al-Azi was travelling. The 6-year-old, great to get his confidence back after this success. I'm not too sure where trainer William Haggis will go from now on in, because he's got loads of options. This was only a listed race, so he'll be escaping a penalty, moving back into group company. Soft ground is crucial, and he likes Newbury, so maybe he'll be back here for the Arc Trial at some point in due course. But it was a really convincing success for Al-Azi, and I think it was one that Jim Crowley particularly enjoyed.
He's a very strong traveller, this horse, and he can drag you into the race sooner than you want to sometimes. But like I said, obviously coming back in trip was a big help. It's just nice to get his confidence back as well. You know, he's, like I said, he's a talented horse, and it was a nice performance.
Next up was the 6 furlong Group 3 Bet365 Hackwood Stakes, and it was a really open contest. Lazoo, a late non-runner because of the rain. 4-1 favourite Comanche Falls, 5-1 Rohan, 7s both Cold Case and Rum Star. This was a race marked by a pretty steady early pace. Nobody particularly wanted to go on, apart from Cold Case in stall 12, and that favoured those drawn higher. Winner Comanche Falls came from stall 8, Diligent Harry second, stall 11, and the front runner Cold Case in stall 12. For sprinters, normally you get a frenetic pace, especially when you've got a relatively big field. 10 took part, but you can see all the jockeys were pulling back, apart from Clifford Lee in the yellow colours of Sheikh Obeid Al Maktoum. Diligent Harry tracked him, and Comanche Falls slotted in behind. Looks like that was the place you wanted to be. I think you can upgrade the efforts of some of those in behind. The pace really didn't suit. Look at Rohan at the back of the field. He loves to come from a strong early pace. He never really left last place. And our 4th horse, Ushi Murphy riding Shartash, he's probably the one to upgrade out of the whole contest. But Cold Case back on easier ground. Ground was too quick last time for him. He's run much better, making the run in for Carl Burke and Clifford Lee. Diligent Harry in the red and green. Clive Cox was a little bit concerned about the soft ground. He's run a cracker, but here Connor Beasley starts to niggle away on Comanche Falls. The horse has won the Stewards Cup back in 2021 and 2022. This year he's been competing in Stakes Company. He won over in Ireland last time, and I think he's just starting to get the hang of how racing differs in Stakes Company compared to the big field handicaps. Not going well enough to take the gap at the 1 marker. Connor Beasley squeezes him through a pretty narrow gap between the 2nd and 3rd. Shartash is running on towards the stand side rail, but doesn't quite pick up in time. He's probably the one to take out of the race going forward for Johnny Murtagh and Ershie Murphy. But great to see this horse win. 11th career success for Comanche Falls. All wins under Connor Beasley. He knows him well. He felt that at halfway the race probably wasn't going to go his way, but the horse is in absolutely cracking form. He comes good at this time of year. No Stewards Cup entry this time around. He could be heading back to Ireland for the Phoenix Stakes next. Here's where the gap opens. It's starting to close. Cold Case slightly drifts right-handed. Diligent Harry drifts left, but the game sprinter, the 6-year-old, pokes his nose through and wins by a head. A neck back to Cold Case in third, another neck to Chartash. Like I say, a lot of those in behind, but inconvenienced by the steady pace. Anaf, I don't think particularly enjoyed the ground. Rumstar in the blue and yellow, just tracking Cold Case. There's not much size to him, but he's done well at 3. And all in all, I think it was just a brilliant performance by Comanche Falls. Great to get another stakes win on the board. They didn't even enter him in this year's Stewards Cup, where I think he could have gone okay off 112. Horses can carry a bid weight to success in that contest, but for now, he's enjoying himself at a higher level. Next up was a £250,000 Weatherbys Super Sprint over 5 furlongs, and we had a really hot favourite in even money, Relief Rally, an agonising nose defeat, second in the Queen Mary. Could she go one better this afternoon? Bobsleigh 4-1, Juniper Berry 7s, both for Eve Johnson Houghton, 11s World of Darcy, 12-1 Son of Corbelay. Big field, draw, always crucial in this contest. Normally, you want to be drawn high. The last low drawn winner was Charles the Great back in 5 in 2011. But while our winner came from 18, look at all those low drawn horses that figured. Dappling second from stall 5, third Payment in Kind stall 8, World of Darcy stall 9 and 4th, and 5th LaGuardia from stall 2, and Beanham was the next home on the stand side from stall 11. The data was pretty interesting, the sectionals for this contest. You could show that Richard Hannon, who had 5 of the 7 lowest drawn horses, individual horses of his team actually recorded the fastest furlong over the first 3, and the far side group were around about a length ahead after 2 furlongs, and where the race probably turned for the far side group was between the 3 and the 2, where they pulled 3 lengths clear of those on the stand side, and it did put them at a disadvantage, but not a problem for Relief Rally. You can see in the double green, Tom Marquand just starting to make sure she doesn't get short of room near that stands rail, which is going to be a little bit congested as horses drift over to the right hand side, and at this point Tom Marquand says go, and he puts a fair bit of distance between the horses on his side, 4 lengths back to Beanham, who finished 6th. On the other side, Dappling, Richard Hannon bidding to win the race once again. 7 runners in the field, gets claimed by Relief Rally, but she does enough to hold on the second and £50,000 in prize money. Payment in Kind back in 3rd place. William Haggis had this race earmarked for this filly a long way out. She just sneaked into the contest. She cost £58,000 as a yearling. 65,000 was the limit. Although she got beat at Royal Ascot, she didn't get an £8 penalty. That was pretty significant. The one to highlight in the orange cap there is Payment in Kind. Just 1 start so far for Harry Eustace's runner. That came just 9 days ago when finishing 2nd at Newbury. He's run an absolute storm. A greenness did show in the closing stages. I think Harry Eustace has a very useful juvenile on his hands. Where next for Relief Rally? That is the question mark for William Haggis. He trained a Kodiak filly in Bashara a few years ago who won the Lowther. Speaking to him, suggested that might well be his next target. She is entered in Numthorpe. They weren't so keen for that target at York. However, back end of the season, Superstar Leo, who won this race back in 2000 for William Haggis, she ended up going for the Prix de l'Abbé off a lightweight as a juvenile, and she came 2nd. And there's potential that could be her end of season target as such, depending on how the rest of the campaign goes. But I spoke to a very happy Tom Marquand at Newbury.
She's a very good filly. Like, she showed it at Ascot and was unlucky not to sort of land the spoils to be able to show that. And look, today, I suppose that ease in the ground probably strengthened my confidence in her, knowing that she handled it well early on in the year. And look, she's shown her class on several occasions now. And yeah, that was probably as enjoyable as a ride as you can have when you look across and there's 20 others and you know you've got them all covered within the drop of a hat.
What I like most about my job on track is seeing juveniles make their debut, seeing how they behave in the paddock and how they perform on track. And I was lucky enough to see 2 top-class performances this week. At Friday, at Nottingham, Vandeek made a winning debut and he produced a pretty devastating performance considering what happened at the beginning. Stall 12 for Vandeek, and he is exceptionally slow into stride. You can see Andrea Zaney works for a good 4 or 5 strides to get him to jump out of the gates, and he's a little bit hesitant to get a move on. However, he is soon into stride, and isn't long before he's actually running quite keen on the heels of runners. Now, he was a pretty expensive breeze at purchase. £625,000 he made, picked up by Simon and Ed Crisford, and it could well be money well spent. This race had loads of strength and depth to it. Our second, Never So Brave, in the blue and yellow, being second in a Newmarket maiden for Sir Michael Stout, and our third, fourth and fifth, that quartet all cost nearly £200,000 or more. Here is where he's actually running very keen, is Vandeek, and watching it live, I thought he's probably very unlikely to pick up. The mark of a good horse that can run that keen and quicken again shows you he's got plenty of ability. Andrea's got him now relaxed, running in a more positive motion, and the question mark was just what would he find. And you can see Harry Davis on Never So Brave using that experience quite wisely, and the white and green Laskin Gold, another newcomer from Carl Burke's team, but switched in between the pack. This Vandeek has quickened up really nicely. I was very impressed by what I saw. In the paddock, he was behaved but a little bit green when Andrea Zaney got the leg up. He was a little bit nervous, and you could see the greenness coming out the stalls. It was interesting to see where he goes next. This horse could be absolutely anything, and I spoke to Ed Crisford after the race.
I thought he would go well, but you never quite know first time out. You know, there's some good horses in the race. Sir Michael Stout's horse, who finished second at Newmarket, you know, had the form brought the form into the race. So it was nice to see him beat that horse, and the form stood up there. So I think we'll just see how he is, whether we go down the novice route or you know, I suppose we'll just see him progress through the summer and, you know, hopefully be hitting some big autumn campaign.
Now, he was exceptionally green, Vandeek, on his debut. It was still a winning performance at Newbury. We had a much more professional debut effort. This was from the Freddie and Martin Mead trained sketch, ridden by Tom Marquand. He looked very professional in the paddock. Stall 2 was sketched. The runner-up, Government Call, Stall 4, and back in third, Gunfighter from Stall 1. Only one of these horses had experience. That was Stall 12, Savvy Kingdom. He ran no race whatsoever. And all those drawn high were all looking around, waiting for someone to go on, whereas Tom Marquand sent out the professional sketch in front, and he never looked back. This is the £100,000 yearling, son of showcasing. In the paddock, he looked like he knew his job. The concern was Freddie and Martin Mead have been very quiet this campaign. This was only their second juvenile runner, and they've only had 4 winners from 23 runners so far this campaign. So I was a little bit unsure what kind of guide they would have had. He was strong enough in the market, went off at 15-2. But what was impressive, when Tom Marquand asked him to quicken, he found plenty. How much will he improve from this debut effort? He probably won't improve anywhere near as much as what Vandeek will, but he looked a nice horse. Pulled 5 lengths clear of the remainder. The time compared very well with what we saw the day before at Friday at Newbury, where it was a bit of a blustery day. Hard to compare later on because the rain obviously got into the ground, but look at him quicken in the closing stages. Strength and depth wise, with all the newcomers, is a little bit of a worry, but Martin Mead spoke pretty positively afterwards from this contest, and he could be going into a higher grade, maybe to Richmond or something like that. But I know Tom Marquand really liked him, and that was first winner of a hat-trick on the day for Tom.
He was professional. We were obviously drawn out in 2, which can be just a bit of a disadvantage on a newcomer, just because you're sort of left out by yourself. But look, he was a pro. He met the bridle, travelled well by himself out in the middle of the track, and look, I thought I was going quite well, but when I gave him a proper squeeze, I was surprised how sort of instantaneous his reaction was. So, look, hopefully he can move on from today and go and we can go and see what's in the tank after something gives him a proper race.
And that's it from this week's edition of The Verdict. Thank you very much for watching. Don't worry though, Angus McNay will be back next week and normal service will resume.